All right, everyone, let's talk about the future of the economy in Lost Ark. And the question of the day is, when will prices start to go back up? Or is it possible that we actually see what we've been seeing lately, which is prices continue to stay low or even possibly get lower? And I'm not just talking about the market at the auction house where you end up buying things with gold. I also want to focus on the exchange here. And it's really important to take note of this because in a game like Lost Ark, the exchange means that you can always end up spending your gold for premium currency, which is blue crystals, but also vice versa. You can always end up basically swiping, charging your credit card, spending real money, and end up exchanging that for gold. And that means that the crystal and gold economy in Lost Ark is always going to be interlinked. Now, let's talk about the future of the game. What's going to happen with both the market and the auction house, and what's going to happen with the exchange. And I'll tell you guys my predictions here at the start. And as the video goes on, I'll kind of explain my predictions here. I think we're going to see material prices stay low for a while. There might be a very short spike in price where they go up for a little bit, but inevitably it's only going to be for a short time. And I think a lot of materials will eventually even go lower in price than we actually see right now. Now, on the other hand, the exchange here, I don't think we're going to see the exchange stay this low forever. I think that if anything, the exchange is only going to go up in price and probably stay up in price. Now, that's a pretty complicated answer there. Why is the material market and the gold market going to possibly continue to go down, but the crystal exchange going to go up? And let's actually explain how I got to this prediction right here. And in order to do this, it's really important to understand the market conditions of Lost Ark and kind of what happened to get to the point that we're at right now, as well as what the future development of the game is going to look like. And the good news is we have a pretty good idea of what the future of the game of Lost Ark is, not just because of the developer blog from Amazon, but also we have other versions of the game that are basically ahead of us in the timeline, and we can kind of use those as a lens to see what the future of our version of the game is going to end up looking like. Now, it's also important to kind of understand what happened to get to we used to be at really high prices, a super inflated economy, and now we have really low prices. What actually caused that to happen? And when you understand that, you'll kind of understand the future of the economy a bit better as well. So very important is how many materials are being generated in the game and how much gold is being generated in the game. And we really want to look at these two things in particular because it's the relationship between these two things that's going to give us a really good sense of kind of where we're at as well as looking forward in the future. Now, if you have very high amounts of gold being generated, but you have very low amounts of materials being generated, that is the recipe for very high prices. And that's what we actually saw several weeks ago, where we saw materials incredibly high. Leapstones were insanely expensive. Tier 3 materials were insanely expensive, but also that caused the exchange to be very high in price as well. Right now on the US West Mari server, we're below 400 gold per 100 blue crystals, but for a little while, we actually saw the exchange at over 900 gold per 100 blue crystals. So that's the recipe for that right there. Now, on the other hand, if you have low amounts of gold being generated and you have very high amounts of materials being generated, that's the recipe for a low market like we're in right now. And we've actually seen it go from one to the other here. Now, the easy part is focusing on how do we go from low amounts of materials being generated to high amounts of materials being generated. Well, we could see pretty clearly the Grand Prix Maruni Racing event. We have the Guardian event that came out as well. And Amazon has actually even said in the developer blog that they're putting new sources to get materials, and there's going to be plans for even more materials going forward in the future. So we've kind of seen this play out firsthand really, really easily. Now the slightly more complicated one is, what about gold availability? How did we go from higher amounts of gold being generated to lower amounts of gold being generated? And this is really going to be Amazon's battle with bots in Lost Ark. And bots are, if you look at bots, I know it's a little bit weird, but if you try to look at a bot as just any regular account playing Lost Ark, the goal of a bot is to generate gold, and bots don't really play the game like normal people. Normal people want to progress their account, and they want to invest resources and spend materials to increase their item level, to access new content, and just generally to end up progressing your account. Bots don't have those same goals. they're there to just generate gold, and they're not there to really consume materials. And so because when you have a big bot problem, it generates a whole lot of gold, but it doesn't mean more materials are being consumed. That's going to cause prices of materials to be really, really high in price. So as Amazon tackles this problem, and it's definitely not 100% solved, it's still an issue, but it's definitely gotten a lot better. That means there's less gold in the economy of the game, and it's going to cause prices to be lower. But bots are not the only source of gold inflation, and I'll talk about this more in a second because this really has to do looking at the future of the economy in Lost Ark. Another big point as well is looking at the materials being consumed. You know, we've gotten to a point now where the whales have really kind of accessed basically all the content in the game. For the longest time, they were still working on their gear, they were still increasing their item level, and they were consuming tons of materials and spending whatever price they had to on these materials to be the first ones to get there. But now we don't really see this as much anymore because we have all the content that's really, you know, the whales have really they've unlocked Argos, they've gotten to 1370. There's not nearly as much of a demand for whales to end up buying materials. But now that we have more materials being introduced in the game, less of a demand for materials, that again is just going to cause prices to be really low like we see right here. All right, let's talk about the future of the game. We have a pretty good idea of the future through the developer blog, but also looking at other servers. What's going to happen in the future of the game? Well, we know that Amazon is still planning on introducing more ways to end up getting materials. South Vern is going to be coming out. There's going to be more access to Tier 1 and Tier 2 mats, and also more people are generally going to be moving past Tier 1 and Tier 2, and there's going to be less of a demand for materials as well, at least those lower end materials. So the supply is going to be higher, the demand is going to be lower. I think material prices are going to continuously stay low or even possibly get lower. The only exception to this is when new content does inevitably come out, and that could be new content that requires a high item level, new raids, or it could be new classes as well. That might cause a very short spike in prices to go up just for a short period of time. But inevitably, in the long term, I think we're going to continuously see a trend of material prices get further and further lower as supply of materials just keeps going up and demand just keeps going down. Now, that's one thing. My other prediction, though, had to do with the Crystal Exchange, though. And my prediction for the Crystal Exchange is not the same as materials on the market. I think the Crystal Exchange is inevitably going to go back up, though. And this has to do with the second big thing of gold being generated. Now, we talked about bots being a problem with gold being generated, which, you know, we saw those Crystal Exchange prices at like 800 to 900 gold plus for a little while. As the bot problem has gotten better, you know, we see the Crystal Exchange a bit more under control. If the bot problem gets out of control again, that could definitely cause the Crystal Exchange to go back up in price. And that's actually a good, you know, a decent indicator is if we see this go back up and there's no new content that got released and it goes back up a lot, that's probably a pretty good indicator that there's a problem with bots again. However, the other big thing is when the new content does inevitably get introduced, things like the new raids, that's also new sources of gold that's being generated, not by bots, but just by regular players. As more content comes out, more methods to generate gold are introduced in the game. And remember that the Crystal Exchange, if you're buying crystals with gold, you might not be spending real money for them, but somebody else still is. For every crystal that is purchased with gold, somebody out there had to swipe, charge their credit card, and spend real money in order to end up getting those crystals. So because that's the case, when more methods to make gold are introduced in the game in the future, if relatively similar amounts of people are still buying crystals, that's just going to cause the price of crystals to go up as more gold is introduced in the game. So I think with the new raids especially, we're going to see that the Crystal Exchange continues to go up in price, but the material market, as demand for materials, you know, is getting lower and lower, and the supply of materials is getting higher and higher. We're going to continuously see it go down. So that's kind of my future of the economy in Lost Ark in a nutshell there, but I'm just one person. This is just my opinion here. Hopefully I was able to talk it out in more detail so that you guys could get a better understanding of it and kind of follow along with me. But now I want to turn the question to you guys. What do you think about the future of the economy in Lost Ark? What do you guys think it's going to be looking like, both in terms of the market things with gold, but also the Crystal Exchange. Feel free to let me know in the comments section of the video. I'll be taking a look at the comments of this video a lot more than I normally do in other videos because I'm curious as to what you guys think. But that's going to be about it for this one. So I think this was long and detailed enough. I don't want to overwhelm you guys with too much info. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider leaving a quick like. Consider subscribing to the channel for more videos like this in the future. And feel free to check out the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Salt, where I'll be streaming Lost Ark as well as other games in the future. Have fun, everyone. Take care. Enjoy the game. And until next time.